and welcome to Metzger Vet Academy. This is the first video that we've created to help farmers diagnose and solve problems related to animal health on their operation. My name is Rachel Budd, and I'm one of the vets here at Metzger Vet Services in Linwood, Ontario. This video is going to focus specifically on calvings. So first, we're going to go through some calving basics. Second, we're going to introduce you to a bunch of tools that we like to use during difficult calvings. And third, we're going to go through a bunch of specific abnormal presentations that you might find calves in when you're reaching into that cow. And we'll give you some pointers, tips, tricks, all how to correct that calf to the normal delivery position. At the end of the day, resolving calving problems on farm quickly means a better outcome for the cow, a better outcome for her calf, and a better outcome for you who's taking care of these animals every single day. All we want to do in this video is help increase your chance of success with calvings, and if this video helps you to correct an extra 1 or 2 calvings, we consider that a win. Ideally, all calves would present normally like this with 2 front legs and a head facing, or at least they would present backwards. Both of these positions are very easy to pull the calf and there's no corrections needed. Unfortunately, there are a lot of ways that a calf can present abnormally, and these positions all require assistance. So before we get into any specifics on calvings, we'll have a little chat about when you should get involved. So first off, if a cow is in stage 1 labor, so that's when the cow is generally uncomfortable. She might be standing up and lying down a lot, looking very restless. That's stage 1 labor. If she's been in that stage for more than 4 hours without making any progress, it's time to stick your arm in and see what's going on. If a cow is in stage 2 labor, so that's when she is actively pushing. She's probably laying down at this point. You can see her pushing, trying to get that calf out. If she's been like that for 30 to 60 minutes without making progress, you want to get your arm in and figure out what's going on. Also, if you see a cow and she's starting to deliver the calf, but you only see 1 leg, or you only see 2 legs and no nose following after, or you see just a nose or anything abnormal like that, just stick your arm in and see what's going on. It's better to check early on when you have a good chance of being able to correct what's going poorly than it is to leave the cow too long and have a difficult time correcting that calving later. Regardless of if a calf is coming forwards or backwards, you always need 3 parts and only 3 body parts presenting to deliver that calf. These can be 2 front legs and a head, or they can be 2 back legs and a tail. When there is a difficult calving, your job is to move the calf around to the point where you are able to get 3 body parts coming out the back end of the cow. These are just a few of the many ways that a calf might present. You'll notice that none of these calves have exactly 3 body parts coming out the back end of the cow. Some presentations are going to require more work than others, but unless the calf does not fit through the back end, either due to size or a deformity, or the cow has a uterine torsion that can't be resolved, or she has a non-dilation so severe that the calf can't be delivered, that calf should be able to come out the back end. In extreme cases where the calf doesn't fit, or the uterus is torsed and can't be resolved, or the cervix is closed so you can't deliver the calf, you may need the vet to go to a C-section. But I'll let you in on a little secret. Vets are good at calvings because they've got lots of practice and lots of experience and training with difficult calvings. Remember, we only get called when there's a problem. By practicing and learning some helpful tricks, it's possible to get the vast majority of calves out the back end without calling in professional help. So, before we can go about correcting abnormal calving presentations, we need to orient ourselves to figure out what is actually going on inside the cow. So when you first reach in, don't go, "I don't know what I'm feeling." Take your time. Explore a bit inside. Get 2 arms in if you have to. If someone's watching over your shoulder making you nervous, go ask them to get you a bucket of water that you can use to clean up the cow, whatever it takes. Just take your time to orient yourself and really feel what's going on inside the cow. Feel free to refer to the last slide with all the abnormal calving presentations, and that will help you align what's going on inside the cow with what you're feeling with your hands. first thing that you should be familiar with when you're dealing with calvings is how to properly apply calving chains. Applying the chains properly is the first step in dealing with any calving because most corrections when a calf is presenting abnormally involve pushing the calf back into the cow. If you're going to push the calf back into the cow, you definitely don't want to lose any feet that are already accessible when you start. So put that chain on first and then maneuver the calf however you want. Chains and ropes both work very well for delivering calves. I tend to prefer chains because they're a little bit more versatile. Both are very safe when delivering calves. What puts a calf at risk is applying chains or ropes improperly. So we'll go through the proper technique for applying chains now. The main thing to remember when you're applying chains is that you always want to put 2 loops on the leg of the calf. This double loop spreads out pressure across the leg to reduce the risk of broken bones. Calf jacks and even people pulling exert a lot of pressure on the calf, and breaking bones is not uncommon. Especially on a live calf, this is very problematic. On a dead calf, broken bones still make it more difficult to deliver the calf because it compromises the areas where you'd like to put a lot of pressure. You lose your ability to exert tension on the legs. It also creates sharp bone fragments that can cut you or the cow if the broken bone is free and loose in the vaginal canal. The first thing that you'll want to do with the chain is make a loop like you can see in the video. Take that loop and push it above the fetlock, regardless of if this is a front or a back leg. Then you'll want to make a second loop and place it below the fetlock joint. You'll want to tighten up both of the chains like you can see in this image here. That makes sure that the chains don't slip when you start to pull on the leg. These images here all demonstrate incorrect placement of the chain. Again, these positions increase the risk that you're going to break the leg of the calf. Identifying the difference between front and back legs is another essential skill when you're trying to correct abnormal calvings. It's very difficult to deal with a backwards calf versus a headback calf, but unless you can determine the difference between front and back legs, this diagnosis might be challenging. In order to determine if you're dealing with front or back legs, you'll want to look at which direction the joints on the leg bend. For this, you'll focus on the 2 lowest joints in the leg. In the front leg, those 2 joints will bend in the same direction and form a C shape if you bend it. With a back leg, the 2 lowest joints on the leg, the hock and the fetlock, are going to bend in opposite directions. Once you've identified the difference between front and back legs, you can move on to begin to correct legs that are not presenting in the right direction. When you're correcting legs, you always want to move the lower part of the leg towards the middle of the calf. You can flex the upper joint away from the calf body, but you never want to pull the foot towards the outside of the calf. Moving the leg towards the outside of the calf increases the risk of damage to the uterus. Sharp toes and a tired uterus are not a good combination. It's also not great for the calf joint, as this is a very abnormal movement and can harm the calf. These same principles apply to back legs as well. Notice how we're keeping the hoof cupped and protected in our hand, moving the hock towards the outside of the calf, and moving the toe towards the inside of the calf. This is how you want to correct legs. A head snare is another useful tool to have in your calving kit. It's very useful to keep the head in place when the head doesn't want to stay on top of the front legs during delivery. This is often the case in poor dilation situations or in a case where a dead calf has a head back. It's very useful to be able to secure the head when trying to fix a leg back as well, just in case you have to push the calf back into the cow. Proper head snare placement means putting the wire behind both ears, just the same way you would place a halter, and then inserting the metal slide into the mouth for stability. This is not going to harm a live calf, and it's a very stable position. Once the chain is behind the ears, that's when you cinch up the metal piece that tightens the snare. If you don't have a wire head snare on farm, a 60-inch chain can make a good substitute. There are 2 ways to place a chain snare, making it a bit more versatile than a wire snare. First, you could make a loop in the chain like I am doing in this video and place it exactly like you would a head snare. Personally, I prefer a chain because I find that head snares can be a bit flimsy when working in a tight uterine environment. Once the chain is behind the ears, you can cinch up the chain into the mouth like you would a wire head snare. Alternatively, you can place one end of the chain behind the ears and then make a loop by feeding the chain all the way around the head. This way, you can cinch the chain into the mouth once it is seated behind the ears and encircles the head. This may be a bit easier than placing a wire snare when the head is far away from you. A wire introducer on the end of the chain can also help you feed the chain behind the ears if you're having a hard time placing the chain snare when the head is out of reach. Once you get the chain down the side of the head, behind the ears, and around the other side of the head, you can feed the first end of the chain through the small metal loop on the second end of the chain to close the snare. Then you can cinch up the loop into the mouth and use it to stabilize the head. Whatever you do, don't make a slip loop over the neck. This can obviously injure a live calf, but even with the dead one, it's unlikely to pull the head straight out of the vagina like you would like. It is much easier to keep the head straight when you have the loop of the chain in the mouth. If the chain accidentally slips and turns into a noose, take the time to correct it. The hardest part is seating the chain behind the ears, so if it does slip, just pull the chain back up from the bottom of the neck and place it in the mouth. You also never want to place a chain or rope on the bottom jaw. This is often very tempting since the lower jaw can often be grasped on a tough head back or on the calf where it is hard to reach the whole head. The lower jaw can't stand much force and it breaks very easily. Obviously, this is problematic on a live calf, but even on a dead one, a broken lower jaw is guaranteed to leave sharp bone fragments that can cut you and also damage the uterus as you maneuver the head. When we talked about how to use a chain snare, I mentioned that you could use a wire introducer to extend your reach. This video is demonstrating how you can attach the chain to the wire introducer and give yourself a few extra inches of reach. This is a very helpful tool for head backs when the neck is just out of reach, or even leg backs when you can't reach the leg. Calf jacks are great tools to have on farm. Any farm that's planning on dealing with a lot of calvings should have one on hand for an emergency situation. The most important thing to remember with calf jacks is when you should and should not use them. So when you can use a calf jack is when you've got 3 parts of the calf presenting and when you know that that calf is going to fit through the vaginal canal. Calf jacks exert a lot of pressure on that calf, so it's possible to do a lot of damage if you jack a calf too hard when it's not going to fit or when you don't have the proper presentation ready to go. So when you're jacking, make sure that you pull slowly. Reach into the calf frequently so that you can tell if that calf is going to fit through the vaginal canal. Use a combination of jacking and angling the calf jack towards the ground to help dilate the cervix if you find that it's a very tight pull. And always remember, use lots of lube to try and make that cow as comfortable as possible. Again, it is very possible to jack too hard and cause either nerve damage in the cow, cause tearing when it doesn't need to be there, or even hurt the calf on the way out. So be very careful, but they are very, very helpful tools that all farms who are dealing with lots of calvings should have. Epinephrine is a great tool to have on hand for difficult calvings. It causes relaxation in the uterus so that you have a bit more room to work inside the cow as you're trying to maneuver the calf around into a normal delivery position. Epinephrine is the same as adrenaline, so it's easy to remember how it works because adrenaline works in your fight and flight response, but you don't really need your uterus if you're in a fight and flight response, so it relaxes, gives you a bit more space. It's not going to help much with cervical dilation, but it will help relax that uterus and just give you an extra 2 to 3 inches with which to work. Epinephrine only works on relatively fresh calvings, so if the cow has been calving for 24 or 48 hours, it's not going to do that much because the uterus is already so tired, but it really works well on those fresh calvings when you've recently noticed that she's starting to calve. The cray hook is a tool that we recommend using only in dead calves. It's a good tool to use if the head is too far away to get a snare around the ears, but you can reach both eyes. You do need to be very careful with this tool since it's quite sharp. It's easy to damage the uterus or even cut yourself while you're trying to place it in between contractions or while a cow is moving. Either way, it's a good tool to have in your calving kit. To place the cray hook, you want to put both points in both eye sockets near the middle of the forehead. You can use the cray hook to exert some pressure on the head, but it is at risk to bend or break or even fall off if you try to jack a calf with the cray hook. It's best to use the cray hook just to get the head in a manageable position and then put a snare on to jack. Before you start, get some soap and clean the vulva and your arms. Also make sure you have lots of lube on hand. You can use J-Lube if you know the cow is not going to go to C-section, and make sure that you grab lots of gloves. Now that we've reviewed some of the basic tools and techniques for calvings, let's move on to correcting some specific presentations that you might come across. Now we're going to start using the skills that we talked about earlier. The first step in any difficult calving is to explore what you're feeling first. Which way are the legs bending? Do we have one calf or two? And are we dealing with front or back legs? You'll notice that when I grab this foot and pull it towards the outside, this is not a natural way for the leg to bend, and I'm not able to correct the calving that way. Instead, it's much better to reach underneath the calf, cup the hoof to protect the uterus, and spin the foot towards the inside of the calf to correct it. Again, we do not want to pull the leg towards the outside of the cow. That puts the uterus at risk, and it's an abnormal movement for the leg. If the leg is out of reach, you can also use a chain, throw it around the leg, and use that to pull the leg further forward so that you can cup the foot and correct the position. Oftentimes, you'll have to push the head of the calf back into the cow so that you have enough room to correct that leg. You'll notice how I push that head away and then pull the foot towards the inside of the calf using the chain as leverage. This is especially helpful if you have a full shoulder flexion where the entire leg is back and you can't even feel the knee. Get that chain around the leg and use that chain to try and pull that leg towards the vulva. That will give you a bit of extra leverage so that you can eventually cup the hoof and correct it. These same principles apply if we're dealing with a backwards calf. Instead of feeling a head, obviously you'll feel the tail. You might feel the hocks as well. Remember that we want to cup the hoof to protect the uterus and flip that leg towards the middle of the calf. If the leg is quite far away, you can still use the chain trick, throw it around the leg, fish the chain out from underneath, and then pull the leg back. That will help get the leg close enough to the vulva that you can cup the hoof and correct that bend. Head backs are potentially some of the most difficult calvings that we correct because the calf's neck is very long and it can bend very far back into the uterus. It's also sometimes easy to mistake a head back calf for a backwards calf, so that's why you want to orient yourself by feeling all around, checking the direction of the joint bends, and just making sure that you're correctly oriented before you try to correct anything. This is why you never want to pull the legs on a head back calf. You'll notice how that head is pinched even closer towards the body, making it more difficult to correct later. Instead, what you want to do is find the chest of that calf and push the calf back into the uterus. This will help loosen up the neck and give you a bit more room to work and correct that head. Notice how that neck is becoming more accessible as I push that calf back. And then eventually I'm able to scoop the nose with my hand and pull it around. You can use the eye sockets, the nose, the muzzle, or even grab around the neck to try and correct that head back. Remember, you want to scoop it towards the front leg so that it sits nicely on top. In very difficult head backs, you can also use a chain to make an open loop around the neck. You'll notice how I place that chain from the top and I'm fishing the chain out around the bottom of the neck. This is not creating a slip noose on the neck. It's instead creating an open loop that I can use to help ratchet that head forward. That open loop, I will walk towards the head and I'll use it as leverage until I can grab the muzzle and correct the head. You can easily turn that into a head snare after the head is corrected. A breeched calf is one that has no back legs presenting, but just a butt. Usually you'll feel a tail and that's it. The key with a breech is to push the butt up and away from you, and this will give you more access to the hocks so that you can manually correct the back legs. Notice how in the left image, that hock is very inaccessible for me to reach in and grab. Whereas on the right-hand image, there's quite a lot more room where I could reach my right arm in to grab that hock. That's the purpose of pushing the butt up and away. Once you have the calf pushed away, you can always use a chain and a wire introducer and throw that around the back leg so that you can pull the hock towards you and eventually scoop that hoof and correct the leg. Sometimes it helps to get a second person involved in this as well. That person can push the butt away as you try to correct the hock. Once you get that hock closer to you, cup the foot like you would a normal leg back, push the hock towards the outside, and pull the leg all the way through. That chain and wire introducer just gives you a bit more leverage. You can always do the same correction without a wire introducer by just manually grabbing that hock as well. Reach for whatever leg is closest to you and whichever leg you think will be easiest to fix. There's no rule over which one you should correct first. Always remember to cup that hoof so that you protect the uterus from any damage. Once you've got one leg corrected, you'll want to reach in and then correct the other one. The second leg usually goes a little bit easier because there's a bit more room to work. Remember, you'll want to grab that hock, pull it towards you. You might have to push the butt away again. And then you'll grab that hoof, cup the foot, spin the toes towards the inside of the calf, and then pull that leg around. Twin calvings combine a lot of the strategies that we've already discussed. It's not uncommon to have one twin as a breech, another twin underneath of it, or one twin forward with a leg back, and then another twin forward with a head back. You can get any number of combinations. So the most important thing with twins is to sort out which limbs belong to which calf. You'll notice how in this video, I'm not working at correcting anything. We're just focusing on which limbs belong to which calf. I'm bending the limbs to figure out if I'm dealing with front or back legs, and then I'm tracing those limbs all the way back to the body, feeling the head and the chest of that same calf. Now that I've moved on to the second calf, I can bend the legs there, trace those legs back, make sure that I'm dealing with the same calf here, and confirming it by feeling the neck and the chest. In this example, there's one twin coming backwards and one twin coming forwards. Bending the legs and assessing the direction of those joints at the bottom of the legs is going to be key to figuring out which limbs belong to which calf. You'll notice how I'm bending that front leg. There's not a lot of room in twin calvings, but you can bend it just enough to figure out which direction the joints are going. And then I'm bending the legs from the other calf as well to see that I'm dealing with back legs there. A lot of times the body will be out of reach because the twin is so far away, so you'll have to rely on that joint movement to diagnose back or front legs. Once I want to correct the twins, I'm going to have to push one twin way back into the cow and work on the other twin first. They're too close in the pelvis to pull one without pushing the other back. Dog sitting is a fairly uncommon presentation, but it's important to keep in mind that it's a possibility because often dog sitting calves are confused for twins. Dog sitting is when 2 front legs and 2 back legs from the same calf are presenting at the same time. It's really important to bend the joints and figure out which legs you're dealing with so that you know which legs you should hook the chains to and pull. Once you've found the front legs and the head, you'll want to chain the front legs and then push the back legs right back into the uterus. That will allow you to attach the chains to the front legs and pull the head around. Until you push those back legs back into the cow, far away from the vaginal canal, you won't be able to deliver that calf. So getting those feet and hocks far away from the vagina will be important to make sure you have enough room to deliver that calf. A transverse presentation is another uncommon one. What you'll feel when you reach in is just a spine and not much else. Depending on if the calf's head or butt is closer to you, you'll either want to turn this into a breech calving or a head back calving. After you turn it into a breech or a head back, then you'll have to work on correcting the legs. So this presentation has quite a few more steps than any of the other ones that we've talked about. It's usually easier to turn it into a breech because the hips are easier to grab than the neck, and you'll be able to spin that calf towards you and then correct the hocks like a regular breech. When you've got a big calf and a small pelvis, that calf may or may not fit out the back end of the cow. To try and create more room through the shoulders, you can walk the legs forward one at a time, pulling the left leg and then the right leg. That will help to create some room through the shoulders. Make sure to reach inside to feel if you do have enough room to deliver that calf naturally. If the calf is hip locked, where the calf's hips will not pass through the mother's pelvis, you can always rotate that calf 90 degrees to unlock those hips and create some more space. Keep in mind that if a calf is too big, you may need a C-section or a phytotomy to deliver the calf. It's important not to pull too hard with a calf jack because you can cause damage to the cow and the calf. Before you finish, always make sure that you reach into the cow one last time. This will help avoid missing any twins that might be left in the cow, which can lead to serious complications later. It can also help to diagnose tearing. We hope that this has been a helpful video for you and that it increases your calving success going forward. Keep an eye out for more videos from Metzger Vet Academy, including a video specifically on how to handle uterine torsions. Stay tuned after the credits for some extra footage, and in the meantime, get those gloves dirty.
Hello!